Well, good morning. Welcome to this Friday's edition of Morning Cafe. 52 days to Christmas. Today we'll be talking about the royal fashion. How about that? My name is Freddy Ndimuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
Well, enough, Floral, it's good to have you here this last day of the week, for us at least. I hope you've had a beautiful week and all ready for the weekend. And of course, you can be part of this conversation by interacting with us at TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. The hashtag is Morning Cafe.
Definitely. I'm used to Stanley Nyerengita. You started the week strong and you're definitely finishing it up strongly. And as Fred talks about it, we're talking about matters fashion, and as we also continue getting into some entertainment. So definitely stick around for that. But first, the highlights.
And the official state visit to Kenya by King Charles III and his wife Queen Camilla officially comes to an end today, with the royal couple spending their last moments at the coast.
Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei tables bill in Parliament seeking to introduce mandatory branding of all livestock to tame cattle rustling, and proposes life imprisonment for those who use violence while stealing livestock.
Meanwhile, in West Africa, Nigeria's Lower Chamber of Parliament rejects a plan by government to buy a presidential yacht for $6 million, which is equivalent to 900 million Kenyan shillings during economic crisis. A presidential yacht.
Oh, yes. During this hard time. Anyway, let's now take a look at the top story. Parking fees has officially gone up in Nairobi. Saloon car owners yesterday woke up to the reality that they will now part with 300 shillings to park their vehicles in town, up from 200. The additional fee takes effect after Governor Johnson Sakaja assented to the City Council Finance Bill of 2023 as he seeks to raise 42.3 billion shillings in this financial year. Last year, he collected 25 billion shillings. Now, motorists parking vans or pickups in Zone 1 will have to pay a daily fee of 500 shillings instead of the initial 200. Parking a truck weighing more than 5 tons in Zone 1 will attract a fee of 3,000 shillings per day, up from 1,000, while parking a trailer will cost 4,000 shillings, up from 3,000. At the same time, the governor has introduced a monthly fee of 3,000 shillings for non-digital taxis wishing to park in Zone 1, ending their free parking era. And that's our top story. Let's now get the day's diary. Then we come back to the dailies.
There's no diary, so just look at the daily.
Okay, me to understand we do not have the diary, so we just go straight to the dailies. And we kick off with the Standard this morning. Where's this 54 billion shilling funding for schools? That's a question as the main headline on the Standard today. New revelations show secondary schools have not received over 50 billion shillings over the last 5 years, with Treasury retaining 5,000 shillings out of 22,244 capitation due per child every year, and Education Ministry another 1,979. And a breakdown of how the capitation is calculated, how much of this money was disbursed in 2019, 2020, 2021, and 2022. Pending balances there amounting to 15 billion shillings, 54 billion shillings in total. That's a big headline on the Standard this morning. The other big story on the front page of the Standard: CEOs of state farms to join UDA politics. Ruling United Democratic Alliance opens a new era in Kenya's politics by giving chief executive officers of state corporations and board members the nod to contest elective party positions. That story is on page 12. Of course, quite a controversial move there. Something else, Mudavadi loses key docket to Kuria for the second time this year. President reorganizes the cabinet and transfers the State Department for Performance and Delivery from the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary to the Ministry of Public Service. That story is on page 10. Also featured on the front page, the continuing state visit by King Charles III. He met freedom fighters' families yesterday, and a picture of him and the president at the Mtongwe Naval Base in Likoni, Mombasa. And of course, the king and his wife, Queen Camilla, they're ending their visit today, and they're spending the last few moments at the coast. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard: pensions crisis as non-remittance of dues hits 40 billion shillings. The Retirement Benefits Authority says most affected are public universities, parastatals and county governments, warning situation is an economic threat to retirees. Quick highlights on the top strip of the Standard: crimes against journalists persist amid assurances. Elsewhere, 14 houses torched in Bukrao. On the international front, Qatar's key role in talks with Hamas. And in sports, after defeats, queries grow for Ten Hag. And that is what is featuring on the back page of the Standard. Matters Manchester United, Ten Hag vows to fight on, but questions grow for Man United boss. And those are the stories on the Standard today.
You can tell how money is big on even the coverage. Takes 3/4 of the back page.
Yes.
While another team there gets a small portion there. But anyway.
The loss was quite big, and losing at home, I think, was a bigger loss. So losing 3-0 to a team like Newcastle at the Theatre of Dreams, of course, I think they should have actually given the whole page to this loss by Man U.
And it's 3/4 of the page of explaining why you lost. Yeah, can you imagine? And let's have a look at the Daily Nation this morning. And the top headline there talks what Ruto-Raila deal means. And the conclusion of the bipartisan report this month is likely to bridge the gap between the government and the opposition, as both sides are expected to rally their troops in Parliament to approve joint proposals. But even as Dr. Ruto and Mr. Odinga gear up for a close working relationship to address issues affecting Kenyans, this could have far-reaching political ramifications in both camps. And that is the story on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. And Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua and Ribo ODM MPs will find themselves in a difficult situation. Yes, away from that, royal tour ends. On page 2 and 3, it explains King Charles III and his host, President William Ruto. There is a picture of them there yesterday at the Mtongwe Naval Base in Likoni, Mombasa yesterday to meet Kenya-UK Marines. King Charles III and Queen Camilla will end their 4-day tour of the country today. And yes, loophole that handed Man 31 and 2.9 billion shillings Kenya Power meter tender. And Kenya Power has used a colonial law to award 2.9 billion shillings a tender for supply of smart meters to a 31-year-old investor, shining a spotlight on the tenderpreneurs of new administration. The utility firm on September 15th offered Halle-Berry Limited a contract of supply 320,800 meters in a selection done by Little Known Supplies branch unit at the State Department for Public Works. That is the story that is on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. Let's have a look at the lower strip of the Daily Nation. And it matters football. Gor Mahia boss eyes FKF a top seat. And yes, the Gor Mahia Sec-Gen Sam Ochola has declared his interest in assuming the Football Kenya Federation presidency to take football back to the people. That is the story on page 43 of the Daily Nation. And new higher parking fees affected in the city. That is that was our top story this morning. And a bill 6 to strip NLC of functions. The government-sponsored bill 6 to wrestle away valuation and compulsory acquisition of public land powers from National Land Commission. That story there is on page 12 of the Daily Nation. Let's have a look at what we have on the right strip of the Daily Nation. Kenya's best MCAs. And yes, a majority of Kenyans think our ward representatives are doing a good job more than a year into the office, with most receiving average approval rating of more than 50%. And this is according to the survey by InfoTrack. Members of County Assembly in 20 devolved units received a performance rating of 50% and above, and an average that only eclipsed by governors at 57%, but is higher than that of senators and women reps. And yes, the counties of Nyeri, the top 25, the counties of Nyeri, the likes of Elgeyo Marakwet, Nyandarua, and also the likes of Meru, Tharaka Nithi, and Siaya. Yes, let's have a look at the back page of the Daily Nation. And it's that story of the tender of how a man, a 31-year-old, landed at 2.9 billion shillings at tender. The ownership, choice, and swift selection of farmers raised eyebrows in the award of the contract. Yes, and that is what we have on the Daily Nation this morning.
Katika gazeti la Taifa Leo, fagia ya Bomas ya Bisha, ndio taarifa kuu pale. Wamechapisha picha za Rais William Ruto, Raila Odinga pamoja na Sabina Chege, Waziri Musalia Mudavadi, Kanini Kega, Naibu Rais Rigathi Gachagua, Felix Oduor na Karoli Omondi. Waidokeza kuwa ni mchecheto, mirengo hasimu itashirikiana bungeni kupitisha mapendekezo ya ripoti ya kamati ya maridhiano. Wapo watakaoumia. Ni nani watakaoumia? Mengi ni katika ukurasa wa pili. Wadokeza aidha kuwa Ruto na Raila watalazimika kushirikiana kufaulisha maridhiano, na wanasiasa wengi watajipata katika hali tata. Hiyo ndio taarifa kuu pale katika gazeti la Taifa Leo. Vidokezo vingine pale juu, MCAs wa Nyeri ndio nambari 1. Utafiti wa baini madiwani hao wanachapa kazi vyema zaidi nchini. Kwingineko, mfalme atua pwani kwa mbwembwe akiwa na kikosi cha Kenya na wanamaji katika ziara yake ya siku 2 ukanda huo. Pale chini, mazishi ya Ali B, rais atoa shilingi milioni 0.5. Ruto Jumo na viongozi kadhaa wa siasa waombeleza na familia. Katika ukurasa wa pili na kutoka 11 hadi 17. Kwingine katika habari za kaunti, FIDA yaanza kumtetea Mwangaza. Shirikisho la wanawake lajitokeza kumwokoa gavana wa Meru aliye hatarini kutimuliwa na seneti. Masuala ya michezo hapa sasa, Man United Arsenal nje ya Carabao. Miamba waangushwa kwa vipigo vizito katika mechi za EFL. Katika ukurasa wa 20. And for once, we're all equal before the eyes of God today. Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Let's take a look at the front page of the Star. The big headline on the Star today: ministers lied to Kibaki in ICC cases. This is from memoirs by former head of public service, Francis Muthaura. He describes how ministers misled Kibaki on diplomatic push. The story is on pages 4 and 5. And then nice photos there of the king inspecting a guard of honor mounted by the Kenyan Navy at the coast. And another picture there with the king, the president, the deputy president, queen, first lady, and army chiefs. Other highlights away from that: adult men, the main source of TB transmission. That's one of the highlights. Elsewhere, matters education, storm of a plan to cut secondary school funding, and counties owe NSSF 4.5 billion shillings in remittances. Now, those are the stories on the front page of the Star. And in the inside pullout, Siasa, tough queries as Senate handles 15 impeachments in 10 years. And this will be Kawira Mwangaza's second impeachment in less than a year.
Interestingly, even as you go to Business Daily, that umbrella by Queen Camilla, there's just something about it.
Be finding that out in Fred's that conversation.
We should be learning that an umbrella is actually a fashion accessory.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just for the rain. Interesting there, because can you imagine probably the president or the first lady with that holding an umbrella? It looks a bit off, but when the queen does it,
looks so
this is
fashionable,
stylish.
yeah. And I think there's just something, that umbrella, it's not as huge. There's just something about it. sense of
Not your
statement.
usual.
We'll be asking the fashionistas
Yes.
what exactly this means. Should women in Kenya now start walking around with umbrellas?
Because I saw the Queen covering herself with the umbrella in coast, and I'm like,
And
is
the
she the
aides
only
are-
one who is feeling
And
hot?
the aides are not even struggling because anyone with an umbrella or the hangers-on will come and pick it for them. They
Yeah.
wacha nikusaidie. But for the Queen, she carries it by herself and she's very comfortable with it.
Be glad to hear what the significance of that umbrella is.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's a front page of the Star.
Let's look at the Business Daily this morning, and the top headline there is SGR bans 70 billion shillings, leaves a taxpayer with loan burden. Yes, and away from that, cities, Kenya officials earn 200,000 per diem. Wow, okay. And yes, there's another feature there on the top strip of the Business Daily. The opposition should have thrown away any opportunity to engage with the IMF and the World Bank. And on the right strip of the Business Daily, Kenya eyes 20% stake buyback in Turkana Oil, and Kenya is readying itself to buy back a stake of up to 20%, a stake of up to 20% in Turkana Oil project, in a critical decision that could eventually be decided by whether the government approves the project, revised development plan, and availability requisite funds. Yes, that is matters concerning the Turkana Oil project. And CFAO takes 54% share of new luxury car market in Kenya. Yes, and that is what we have on the Business Daily this morning.
From BD to PD, that is the People Daily, the big story matters education here and higher learning. Matters crisis as varsities run out of money. So they're talking about this in dire straits after heeding ministry directive to admit students without fees. Institutions and 275,000 learners now struggling to survive as lecturers go without pay for months due to the delay by Treasury to release the much needed cash. That is on page 4. There's a quote there by Embu Vice Chancellor, Professor Daniel Njiru, saying some of us have been forced to divert funds from parallel degree programs to finance operations. That story is on page 4. Below there, the whole visit by the King, extensive from page 6, 8, and also page 14. They say the chosen few Kenyans who met UK King and Queen. King Charles III, who has been on a 4-day tour of the country, bumped into a few ordinary Kenyans, from market women, techies, and war veterans, who narrated their rare encounter. Here, he inspects a guard of honor at the Mtongwe Naval Base in Mombasa yesterday, as they show on that photo. Flora and Fred, I'm curious, if you're meeting the King today, what's the first thing you'll tell him?
Niaje.
You could actually be lost for words when you meet him.
Yes.
You know, watching him on TV is very different. Once you meet him and you actually realize you're in the space of a king.
Yeah,
Wow. It must feel different.
probably like in it.
Right? Yeah. It just make a very light joke.
Oh, yes.
Can't start telling him, oh, this is my 10-year plan.
Then you forget all the English that you've done.
You'll find yourself saying hi to him in Kimeru.
And still on the front page of People Daily, ladies and gentlemen, and the top scroll there, how Kenya's grooming music stars for a global stage. So matters entertainment, that is on page 20. And in a nutshell, that is the front page of People Daily.
Okay. Let's cross the border now and see what's headlining in the city of Kampala, Uganda. The Daily Monitor front page, wanted Chinese investor flies out. It is not clear why Chen Chao, whom Rwanda sought to extradite from Uganda on forgery and tax evasion charges, was released despite a warrant for his arrest being outstanding and known to Ugandan authorities. That's a big news in Kampala, Uganda today. Still on the front page, we have a photo there of police officers, police armies, top commissioning of new NUP offices. Matters politics. Other stories highlighted on the front page of the Daily Monitor this Friday. Uganda Cranes get a new coach. And that's it in Uganda. That is what people are talking about in Kampala today.
On Mwananchi, katika gazeti la Mwananchi, tanuri la moto, ukizungumzia bima ya afya kwa wote ilivyopitishwa katika kisha alama za dukuduku pale. Tanzania itaanza kutoa bima za afya kwa raia kwa wote, lakini shughuli ya kufikia uamuzi huo haiko rahisi. Hofu bado yatanda kuhusu vyanzo vya fedha. Aidha, dokeza kuwa milioni 61 ni idadi ya Tanzania kwa mujibu wa sensa ya watu na makazi ya mwaka 2022. Hata hivyo, takwimu zinaonyesha ni asilimia 15.3 ndio wenye bima. Masuala ya afya hayo katika nchi ya Tanzania. Kwingineko, mvua zaleta balaa Dar, shughuli za simama. Je, ni El Nino iliyoanza? Kwa ufupi, hivi ndio vitokezo katika gazeti la Mwananchi.
Let's have a look at the Citizen in Tanzania this morning. And the headline there, Tier 2 banks nearly triple total profit. The numbers, it's 73.8 billion shillings is the money that they've tripled in terms of their profits in this financial year. And a German tourist holds dear memories of Tanzania's beauty. That is on the top strip of the Citizen. Remember, the president has been visiting that country for the last few days. And Samia sees a swift growth of tourism in Tanzania. Yes, President Samia Suluhu said yesterday tourism in Tanzania was poised for accelerated growth and the industry would remain a key driver of economic development. Yes, and let's have a look at the very lower strip of the Citizen. UDSM science deals as varsities embark on campus excursions. Yes, and that is what we have on the Citizen. Time now for Caricature.
Right. We did take a look at Uganda's, yes. Okay.
Yes, we did. Tuangazie masuala ya Caricature tukianza na gazeti la Daily Nation. And we have people there, a number of swimmers in UDA colors swimming, but there's a huge wave written port privatization. They look like they're going to drown. This wave could drown some of these swimmers. And it talks about the debate around the privatization of the Kenya Ports Authority, the Mombasa port. And it is big news in Mombasa, where the president is as part of his 5-day tour of the coast.
On page 16 of the Standard, a house in turmoil. The roof is being blown out, the windows are shattered, and there's just too much chaos here. And this house has a flag on it, and that flag is written Kenya Kwanza. And really decipher what is happening in that house of Kenya Kwanza. Quite ironical and a bit satirical of the current political turmoil in the Kenya Kwanza alliance.
Yeah, speaks largely to the upcoming elections. I think there's just a lot that is going on in UDA. The elections are slated for December, I think so. Let's have a look at the cartoon on the People Daily, and as the Note today decided to focus on that increase in parking fees from 200 shillings to 300 shillings in Nairobi. There's a gentleman there saying this is Nairobi in broad daylight. Yes, and I think that that is it for me this morning. Nairobi.
Yes, Tano, this is Nairobi in broad daylight. Well, that's a reality now. It was our top story. Now in Nairobi, if you're driving your car and you're hoping to park in town, it'll cost you a little more.
Oh, yes. Plus the fuel.
Plus the fuel, of course.
So you
fanya hiyo hesabu. Do the math.
Just say, let me just leave the car.
Yes. Yeah. Well, you can continue interacting with us on our social media pages. TV47 News on X, TV47 Kenya on Facebook. Remember, this morning we're going to be having Musalia Munesi, a corporate image consultant, and the president's tailor, Ashok Sunny, discussing matters royal fashion. You don't want to miss that conversation. Coming right up after the break. You're watching Morning Cafe. Good morning. Welcome back. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Ndimuli. We now want to look at matters royal fashion. The King, Charles III, and Queen Camilla are in Mombasa currently on their last day of their 4-day official visit. They've been in Kenya for this is the 4th day now, and they've held a number of events, including that state banquet that was held in their honor at State House Nairobi, hosted by the President and the First Lady. And we now want to look at the fashion statements that were made by the King, the Queen, and also our own leaders. And to have this discussion in studio this morning, I'm privileged to have Mr. Ashok Sunny. Mr. Ashok Sunny is the CEO of Ashok Sunny Tailored Limited, and he's also the President's personal tailor. How is that?
We try. Nairobi, you have to try.
Lazima. Nikujaribu tu.
Yes.
So, a lot has been said about our English heritage.
Yes.
We are among the few African countries that could be said to behave or to try as much as possible to mimic the British in our mannerisms, in the way we dress. So when the King and Queen are around, definitely we try to outdo ourselves.
Yes.
The expectation initially was that we would see the President, Kenya's president, when meeting for that official reception for the King. And people were curious to see whether or not he was going to go for the kaunda suit. But he went for the traditional suit. Why do you think this is?
I think, as you've seen with many, even the climate summit, he tries to go basically back to the structured suits. He likes a more Italian cut suit with a cuff at the bottom. So you've seen, even when international guests are coming in, especially Europe and America, he goes back to the structured suits compared to the kaunda suits. So I think that's what he tries to do, so that he can let the guests feel welcome. Because I think the kaunda brings out the more Pan-African look, which in history doesn't fare well. It depends on whoever you're hosting. So it's good for the optics to make the person who's coming more comfortable before you go to your traditional ways, back to your traditional ways.
Is it that rigid, especially when you're talking about the British monarchy? Is it that rigid that if you are with the King, that ideally you should be in a traditional suit?
Yeah, it is, because they have some unspoken rules, the royal family, when it comes to dressing. Even you can see him himself and the Queen. They are sticking to the rules, which are made more famous by Queen Elizabeth. She was very strict and rigid in terms of dressing and the way she should appear in public. And she had some very unspoken rules from that day when her father died, when she was here and had to go back. Like she had to stay on the airport, on the plane, for almost an hour or so, waiting for someone to bring a black dress to her to wear, so that she doesn't look in a bright color outfit when she's heading off from the airport to the palace. So that optics was very, very key. That's why they're very, very rigid in terms of dress code.
And the British media is very keen on each and every item of clothing or fashion that this, especially the royal couple, wears. And you can see stories and stories about even what she wore on the very first day. If you just Google right now, and the British media, and I'm looking at, is it Pop Culture, WWD, and they're talking about which dress she wore. She arrived, and for her arrival, she accessorized the dress with a silver brooch, and carried a small white top handle bag. She completed a look with beige shoes and a black cap toe. And you wonder, why the obsession with royal fashion? What is the big deal about what exactly the King or the Queen will wear?
The dress code is actually very, very intentional. And like I said before, it's made very, very famous by Queen Elizabeth. The clutch bag, people usually don't know. The ladies have to wear the clutch bag because it's a signal of communication. So if, like Queen Elizabeth, when she was in an uncomfortable conversation and she wants to leave, she used to use the clutch bag as a signal, to signal to the guard or someone to come and excuse her from that conversation. So, and then she usually used to like to wear bright color dresses. Like you can see, the first day, the Queen wore a bright white dress. It's very intentional that you have to stand out in a crowd when you're going somewhere, especially outside the palace. When you're going to visit somewhere, you have to wear a bright colored outfit. You can see when she came, she was in white. For the banquet, she wore a light blue with silver accents with silver shoes. So basically, that's very, very intentional in terms of the way they like to dress. Yeah.
And it's curious to see just how much the British media is focusing on every piece of dress. They describe it to great detail, how she wore it. Every piece of accessory needs to have a meaning.
Yes.
She does not just wear a necklace.
Yes.
They even go to see when this necklace was made. When it comes to accessories in Kenya, we do not pay that much attention to that.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I think this is royal families. They are the head of state there. They're like the second most powerful head of states in the world, apart from the US. So I think whatever they do and everything they do has to be very, very intentional. It has to speak a certain purpose or has to avoid certain criticism from the media or the world. You can wear a diamond that comes from Africa and say, oh, it's from the slave kids that are mining diamond in certain parts of Africa. So you have to be very, very careful, how you dress it and what you do and how you look outside the palace.
Okay.
Yeah.
And allow me to welcome Mr. Musalia Mwenesi, corporate image consultant. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you at TV47. And you found Ashok and I already on this conversation about whether or not we acted the part in welcoming the king, in as far as the fashion is concerned. The first curious thing when the king headed to State House, Kenyans really wanted to see what President Ruto was going to wear in his choice of suit, because he's adopted this new style, the Kaunda suit. Yet when the king came, he went back to the traditional suit. Why do you think that is?
One of the things that really stands out when it comes to dressing is that it's a means of communication. Whatever you wear sends a message. And in this instance, I think what he wanted to send was a message of respect to the king, insofar as this is a very, very official occasion, and I respect that you are here, and if you are going to wear a suit, I will also match you and do the same thing. That level of matching is a way of showing camaraderie and partnership, because if he had stuck and been, rigid in his own style and decided to go with his Kaunda suit, he would have been sending a message that, I respect you, but I'm going to do what I want, which in a way would be kind of antagonistic. So it was important that he showed that sense of partnership and friendship. Anytime you match someone, whether it's in your dressing, whether it's in your body language, you activate what we call mirror neurons. And that's a way of showing that, we are in sync, we have rapport, we are together.
Okay. Yet we see towards the end of, and it's on the front page of the Daily Nation today, yesterday on the third day of the King Charles's visit, they were in Mombasa. The president went back to his Kaunda suit, but the king is still in his suit. And if at all it was communication, what would the president have been communicating yesterday? Is this a dress down?
I think for more, it's in terms of expressing himself, and I think the weather too had a factor, because I think it's too hot in Mombasa to wear a tie and a suit, and I think the king, because of the suit that he's wearing, which is, like I told you, is lightweight fabric, is more comfortable in wearing a full suit and a tie compared to the president himself. So I think for him, it was more about the weather and the occasion and the place compared to the kind of dressing that he wants to wear, or matching the king in that sense.
Yet the king is always in a suit. Is there ever a dress down day for the king? I've not seen any photos of him not in a suit and tie.
I think the royal protocol is that whenever you're on a state visit or an official visit, you must wear the most formal, and the most formal in this instance is a suit. A suit has edges and symmetry, and edges and symmetry in terms of formality is the highest level of formality that you can find. The suit that we typically wear has a lot of edges where you have these pointed areas. So the more edges and symmetry that you have in your outfit, the more official and formal the occasion. And he is under no illusions that this is a state visit. It's the first time he's setting foot as king in Africa. So this is the highest mode of respect. But when it comes to Ruto, I think he's now reached a point where he's now comfortable. You know, the first time someone comes to your house, you will be as official. You'll bring out all the official dinnerware and make it, you know, prepare everything perfectly. By the second day, you'll still maintain that level of formality. But by the third day, you're now a bit more relaxed. You're now saying, okay, you know what? Now that we're here, now that we've gotten to know each other, let me relax a little bit and be myself. Maybe now I'm not going to be as formal, but still, I think we also need to understand that there's a difference between style and fashion and dress code. I think with King Charles, he's fully in the dress code of this is a state visit, so I'm going to maintain the dress code. Dress code is what is prescribed by an organization, by an industry, by certain protocol. So if the dress code for say lawyers is this, then that is what you have to wear regardless. Fashion, on the other hand, is what is trending in a particular time and place. Obviously, right now the global trend for official wear is a suit, a formal suit, whether it's a two-piece or a three-piece. And so whatever's trending in the Commonwealth is a suit. So he's sticking to both the dress code and the fashion. But then style is your personal expression, and I think that's where Ruto is leaning. I think his personal expression is that he wants to create a brand for himself, and this brand is leaning more towards the button-down counter style suit. So I think by day 3, I think Ruto was now comfortable enough to start to express himself a bit more, which shows that they're now getting comfortable. And even the suit that the king wore, as you can see, it's in some way a dress-down suit. It's not the navy or the pinstripe or anything like that. It's a more pastel based color, a bit more relaxed. It looks like it has a bit of a linen feel as well.
Even the shirt is a light pink.
Light pink, absolutely.
Yeah.
So he's also dressing down, but still maintaining that official dress code for a state visit.
Yes, and we'll be sharing some pictures that on screen because especially in Mombasa, we saw, yes, the president went back to his counter suit and even the deputy president was there. But the way the deputy president dressed with regard to the kind of occasion going to meet the king, because this was the first time they were actually meeting. I would like to hear your sentiments on that. But we'll have to see the photo first so that we can talk about it. But now that you raised this issue about the king's suits and his choice of suits, because there's always a preference for darker colors when it comes to suits. Especially, we could see like there was a stark difference between what he wore when he arrived in Kenya and when he was going round. But when he attended that state banquet at the State House, he was in a dark suit, and it looked a bit more firm as opposed to what we are seeing him wear here. And that would have been the expectation that is how the king dresses throughout. But we can see the different kind of suits that he wears for each and every occasion. He must have a lot of handlers to just make sure that every time he attends one event, he changes.
Actually, that's true because, like I told you, his mother made that issue of dressing up very, very intentional. And for men in the kingship or princes, it's very, very strict rules for dressing compared to women. Women are a bit more free. The queens and the princesses are a bit more free in terms of dressing. But the men have a very strict rule on how to dress. You're supposed to be in a suit and tie. If you're not in a suit and tie, you are wearing a jacket with chinos, mostly khakis, or you're wearing down a light colored trouser. But on the top, you wear a dark colored jacket. So when you're going for a state banquet, which is very, very formal for them, you have to wear a dark suit. It can be a tail suit, or it can be a structured suit, but it has to be a dark color. So that's why they are very, very intentional in how they dress. The king himself, he has a lot of people working, obviously, on how optics should be and how he should look outside. But he's very appreciative in terms of how he dresses. He's very intentional himself on how he should dress because he goes to the tailor himself. He has specific tailors for the suit, for the shirt, for the tie, for the shoes. So you have very, very specific bespoke tailor. All his suits are bespoke tailored. So in terms of the way he dresses, himself, he's very intentional on how he dresses.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that if you see a lot of pictures of King Charles, he has this mannerism of dipping his hand into the pocket. And when you look at his suits, they end up having some foldings around the pocket. What does that say? Because the suit you're wearing is very straight, and you rarely even get to pocket in your jacket. What does that say about his mannerisms, even as king?
Yeah, I think, the king has a lot of activities that he engages in, and I think one of those activities is hunting. Most of the jackets that he wears provide for storage in terms of, except for the one that he wore officially when he came and he was visiting State House. But most of his jackets provide for some storage space, and I think, like we mentioned, style is your own personal preference and your own personal expression. So because most of his suits are tailored, that provision for having his pockets that have come as a consequence of time and habit. He enjoys hiking, he enjoys going into the woods in Scotland and around parts of England as well, and he engages in quite a bit of hunting. So the tendency to put your hands in your pocket, and also because the weather there is actually quite cold and rainy and windy. So that habit I think has developed over time, and I think his clothing has matched his habit, because obviously if once you know what someone's preference is, then you obviously will cater to that preference.
You make that allowance, for the hand.
Yes.
But it tends to look a bit, sorry to use this word, a bit shabby. I don't know if that's the image you get, because his suits look a bit freer. They're not as straight and well trimmed like President Ruto. You'd think President Ruto's suit is a new one, and the king is wearing an old suit.
Well, I mean, also it comes with age. The older you are, the less restriction you want on your veins, on your arteries, because if you notice, most older people tend to have a bit of a looser fit. It's still tailored. You can tell that it's still done with his silhouette in mind. But he's a bit more advanced in age than President Ruto, and he would appreciate a bit more freer fit to his skin, rather than having something that's a bit more fitting. The older you get, the less restriction you want on your vital organs, and I think that's something that he has gone for. But yeah, you're right. It always helps when you have a trimmer silhouette and a better cut and better fitting suit. It looks more put together. And I saw that some people were commenting, like you said, that his suit looks a bit old, because it's bunching up and it's very, very loose. But it's still tailored that way to cater for his advanced age.
Okay, a lot has been said about his mannerisms, and the fact that he keeps dipping his hands into his pocket. You deal with these issues a lot, especially on matters image.
Yes.
And there's some who say that King Charles, even when he was prince, he suffered a lot from issues of confidence, and that he adopted that action of dipping his hands as a pacifying gesture. Do you think, for a person of his stature right now, that he really has issues of confidence, and that's why he keeps doing that? Habit is something that is formed over time, and I think people have certain habits, certain quirks that they develop, whether it's a consequence of anxiety or lack of confidence. But I think for me, knowing his lifestyle, and that they spend a lot of time outdoors. And a lot of the outdoors activity require you to first keep your hands warm if you're not wearing gloves, because you're also going to be handling a gun or something like that. You don't want to be wearing gloves that are restricting. So that habit of pocketing means that you've spent a lot of time outdoors. He's a very active person when it comes to outdoor activities. So I'm going to try and give him the benefit of the doubt that it's a habit that has developed over time as a consequence of lifestyle, rather than lack of confidence. Although there might be something to be said about him having that inner sense of anxiety, maybe as a consequence of how he grew up. I mean, his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, was extremely strict and forthright when it came to behavior and being proper.
and she had been grooming him right from when he was young, that, look, this is going to be your mantle, this is something that you're going to have to do. So he's grown up in a lot of pressure. And so it could be that, you know, there's a way that the weight of not just the country, but the Commonwealth, the empire that has been built, is on your shoulders. And that could be a tough thing to handle for anybody. I mean, if I gave you an empire today, I think you'd be a little bit
I'll just
anxious.
crumble. And, Ashok, I saw some criticism directed the King's Way about the shoes he wore. And comparisons are being made between his shoe and that of President Ruto. There's a photo going around, and the president's shoe appeared very new in comparison to what the king wore. Does the shoe have to be new?
What people don't understand when it comes to bespoke, his bespoke tailor for shoes is Cockett & Jones. Shoes for them have a meaning. A bespoke shoe is an investment, something you buy for the long term. So you don't make a bespoke shoe today and wear it tomorrow. You make a bespoke shoe and wear it for a long period of time. So these shoes, especially dress shoes for them, like what he was wearing, he's worn the shoe for a long period of time. It's not a cheap endeavor. So people make bespoke shoes, especially for people like him, bespoke shoes and suits and everything else. They don't make it for an occasion. It takes time. If you make a bespoke shoe, it'll take you almost 2 months. So they don't make it, oh, I'm wearing this, I'm making this shoe to wear for my visit to common
And then dump it.
And then dump. No. For President Ruto, he buys his shoes. They're basically leather, Italian or British, but he buys his shoes. So he can have a number of pairs of shoes. When it comes to the British, a shoe and a cloth means something that has to be worn for a long period of time. It has a certain significance and a certain style. Like when I told you, people have a certain style. And then you have the code, rules and conducts of how you're supposed to dress up. So those shoes may look old, but they're not. That doesn't mean they're very, very old, but they've been worn for.
They're not worn out.
They're not worn out. So he wears it because they have a certain significance to him. So he has owned it for a long period of time. Yes.
What about his choice of color for suits, especially they are much lighter in color. He goes for, yes, like this one is a gray one. The one, this is a different color. I don't know. I'm not very good at colors. This
is beige.
Beige,
yeah.
Yes. He seems to have a preference for light-colored suits, which are not very common in Kenya. You're always advised if you're going for an interview, you wear a darker suit. Monesi.
Yeah, I think in this instance, he was also trying to give his respect to President Ruto, knowing that he is visiting his compatriot where he is based. So as a sign of respect, it's to kind of allow the focus and the attention, especially from a dressing perspective, to be on your host rather than to be on yourself. Even when you go, if you're invited somewhere as a guest, you don't want to outshine or outdress your host. If you go to a wedding, for example, you don't want to look better than the bride and groom. You want to obviously show your respect to the person that you're with. And you know, the darker the suit, the higher the status. And so in this instance, I think it might have been deliberate, or it might be a question of preference. I tend to think it might be deliberate, especially from a protocol perspective, to allow for himself to be sort of like, of course, he's still the king, but you know, he is visiting a president in his country, and the president is the host. So to allow for that respect, that, you know what, I'm visiting you, you are the host, I will allow you to have the higher status and wear the darker suit, and I will try and maintain my guest status and be a little bit more understated in terms of the tone of my dressing.
And if we could talk about President Ruto, a lot has been said about his new dress code, and he appears very bold in his choice of colors now. This light blue, there are some colors that he wore, I think a maroon suit, and that
orange, yellow.
Yes, orange and yellow.
Yeah.
This is very different from what we are used to.
Yeah. I think what you can see from this administration is they're very trying to be very intentional on how they dress. The president, the first lady, you can see the first lady. People are not appreciative of how she dresses, but she's very intentional on how she likes to dress and how she comes out in public. She's not an outgoing character, but you can see the way she dresses. She knows how to dress, proper dressing. long dresses, structured dresses, dresses that, for the dinner, she wore a dress with the Kenyan colors, the flag. So it's not something you just wake up and do. It's something very intentional. You think about, there's a process that you have to do to get to that point. You can see the president, he has a personal style. When it comes to suits, he likes a more Italian cut, more flared, more fitting, with a cuff at the bottom. For the counter suit, he's trying to create his personal style and brand and image of how he wants to be remembered as a president, how he wants people to remember him from every point and aspect of his presidency, from the dressing to leadership and everything else. I think that's what he's trying to do with this kind of colors and bold colors, because I think you can see when he wears a color, he wears it once. So it's a matter of you knowing him and creating a brand that you can say that this is the president's brand.
Yes. Are there colors that may be considered less presidential when he opts for orange and purple?
Sure. I mean, those are considered festive colors. I think we would engage in society in terms of 3 levels. I would say the first level is the commercial level. Commercial, professional is the most serious, the most formal level, and that's where there's something at stake. There's something of value at stake, either a job or an opportunity or money or some kind of relationship that will involve commercial gain on both sides. The second level is the social level, where we're a bit more relaxed. We're not here to make money, or we're not here for a job interview or something like that, but we're here maybe to connect and to make friends and maybe have a party, maybe have a bit of a relaxed time. And the third level is romantic. We're here to see if we can find significant others. And so in those levels of interaction, you'd find that people will dress according to whatever value exchange they're trying to do. And we can see with Ruto, the first, when you look at some of the colors that he's choosing, he's trying to combine both the commercial, which is obviously your darker colors, the dark browns, the dark grays, the charcoal grays, the navy blues, and so on. But he is also trying to endear himself to the public. I think he's a president who is very, very intentional, as Ashok said, who understands that he wants to make friends. He ran on a hustler narrative. He ran on a narrative that we are connected, we are together. I have come from the bottom and I have reached the top. I would like for you guys to also know that I am with you. I am not here to talk down to you. So when he dresses in particular colors that are a bit more festive, that are a bit more social, because once you look at the yellows and the oranges and some of those more luminous hues, it's more of I'm dressing down, I'm coming down to a social level. I want us to engage as friends, and that has obviously stirred. It has done what it needed to do. People are talking. He's managed to stand out, and I think also it's contributing to his brand. Okay. He wants to be an approachable, relatable president, someone who looks like, you know what, the colors that I'm wearing, I'm not stiff, I'm not stuck up, you don't need to make an appointment to come and see me. I am approachable, I am friendly, you can come and chat with me anytime. And
I was just looking at that photo on the screen where the president and the king are standing together, and I noticed that the king's suit had creases on it. It's not something that we take lightly. If you could see our president, yes, this is what I'm talking about. The president, we rarely get to see him in any crease anywhere. All his shirts, all his suits are properly ironed.
I think when you say about the crease, it's about the feet. When, like Monesi told you, the king is older than the president. The president's a bit more younger at heart. That's why he can try things and be bold and do a lot of stuff and use his attire to communicate to the people. He wants to be more relatable. But for the king, because of the pocketing and everything else, the jacket has to be half canvas. And the fabric is very, very lightweight. Okay. And British are not people who like lightweight fabric. The fabrics are more structured and heavy in weight. So this is a light fabric, light in weight. The canvas is half canvas. So that's basically, you see the feet's a bit looser and the fabric is a bit more creased. It's not really creased, but it's the way he likes to dress it. When he pockets, you see the creases coming from the pocket. Because he likes to pocket a lot, he has a lot of things in his pocket. So the things that are holding on in his pocket are pulling down the fabric because it's light, they're pulling out the fabric. So you see a lot of creases because there are a lot of things in the pocket and the fabric is lightweight. So the things that are in the pocket are pulling the fabric down, so you can see some small creases. And on the button there, like you see, it's a 2-button, but usually leave for bespoke suit, they leave a 3rd button there on the lapel. So depending on how you want to dress up, you can do the jacket a 2-button, but you also button the second one. So because of also the lightweight nature of the fabric and half canvas stitching that has been done on the jacket, anything on the pocket will pull, and then you'll have those slight creases on the jacket. But it's a very, very expensive suit.
It may be expensive, but it's not the kind of look you would be going for.
No, sure, absolutely. I think, you know, in this particular instance, I think there was a bit of a misstep in terms of the people who might have selected this particular cut for him, because in the suit game you have what you call the super blends, and so the higher the blend, the less crease, the more crease resistant it is, and you can see that President Ruto has chosen something that is what do you think that is? A super what?
It usually does a super 150 and above.
Probably a super 150 and above, but you can tell that with King Charles, he's opted, I think, coming to Africa, in his mind maybe, or in his handlers' minds, that, you know, having something that is leaning more towards cotton, maybe a bit more cotton blends, again taking note of his age, meaning that you want something that is very, very flexible. The issue with flexibility is it compromises. You see something like cotton, linen, things that are a bit more on the I won't say less elastic, but maybe that's the only term to use. Yes. The less elastic side. Cotton and linen are items that crease very, very easily. In fact, if you want to press a linen suit or a linen shirt, you have to put it on the highest amount of heat, because linen is very, very prone to creasing. But that is the style. That is what linen and cotton will do. So in this instance, I think the suit that he's wearing is more of a cotton blend, and that's why it's more prone to creasing. But it's also very comfortable. It's very breathable, and for his age, it's something that he has opted for. Of course, it doesn't do very well for optics. The less creases you have from an optical perspective, the better. Although I've realized that when you've reached a certain level of power, you know,
these are minor issues.
Even you can see the way he's standing with his body language. People who stand with their hands behind their back, that is the highest level of power that you can assume, because you're basically exposing every aspect of yourself. You're not protecting anything. You are standing as if you know exactly where you are. It's like like when a headmaster is walking around, or a prince or an invigilator is walking around an exam room looking at the students and checking on them. At that point, the invigilator is the highest authority in that room. And when you have your hands behind your back, you are displaying a sort of air of power, not just confidence, but power. And you can tell that he's someone who has reached the peak of his power, and whether his suit is creased or whether his pockets are bunching up, I don't think he's particularly bothered.
It's the least of his troubles.
Yeah, he's dealing with the Commonwealth. He's not dealing with one country.
What about the accessories on the suit? The button, the red button. I think the
poppy.
What?
Yeah, the red poppy. It's an ode to the fallen soldiers. So Britain went through 2 world wars, and that is something, once you go through a war that kills several million people, it's something that sticks in the mind. And the red poppy is an ode to all the fallen soldiers who served in Britain. And I think before he during his time, I think they only ended conscription very recently. Many people, and it's customary for all members of the royal family to serve in one aspect of the military or the other, whether it's the Navy or the Air Force. So he's obviously served, and for them, the military and the soldiers are a very, very important part of the culture. Okay. And so whenever you see that red poppy, it is an ode to...
It does make a statement.
Yes, it's a statement and a sign of respect to all those who have gone before him.
Okay. When it comes to the handkerchief and the pocket, it's also something that many Kenyans don't understand. When should you have one? When not to have one? The president rarely has any of that.
It's all about a personal style. It's all about personal style. It doesn't have appropriate place to wear or anything, because you can see most of our members of parliament don't appreciate a pocket square and what it brings out to the outfit. When you go to the House of Lords, most of the British members of parliament like to wear pocket squares. If it's a light pocket square, white strip like this, if it's a folded pocket square like that, they usually appreciate the sense of style and class that a pocket square brings to the suit. So when it comes to our style, it's all a matter of personal style. People think when you wear a pocket square, you don't look very serious. Yeah, it's like you're trying to be fashionable or anything else. And that's why we also end up going to those darker colors in our sense of style. Once you get to a certain age, from 30 and above, and you go into meetings and meeting people, because when you go to meetings and meet people, you mostly meet all the guys. So you end up wearing those dark colors, the dark blues, the blacks, the pinstripes. And then when you try to do something different, you look a bit more fashionable, and people say you're not serious. So they say, this guy's not serious. He's trying to do too much in terms of fashion. Okay. But it's basically it's how you wear it and how you put it in the pocket is differentiate between being a very serious person and someone who's trying just to be fashionable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Talking about the pocket square, because I can see like yours is neat, but his looks like it's just flushed in a bunch inside the pocket.
Sure. Although mine looks neat, mine has also been kind of like flushed in a bunch. But the issue with the pocket square is while it does send a style statement, it's also quite functional. The history of it is that, as a gentleman, you have lords and gentlemen in the early medieval times. As you were coming up as a gentleman, your sole purpose was to be chivalrous, was to be courteous, and to be someone who would take care of those around them, especially the ladies. And so you were encouraged to have two handkerchiefs, one on the front of your jacket, one that you could easily access, and that's for the benefit of those around you. Maybe a lady has spilled something on herself, or maybe there's some sweat on her brow, and you would use that as to kind of like help her sort herself out. And then you had your own, which would be in your inner pocket, which you would then use maybe to blow your nose or to clean something up for yourself. So a gentleman was always encouraged to carry two pieces of cloth at a minimum. Sometimes you would have a third one, which was tucked behind your belt or the back pocket, and that was like your industrial one. That was the one that you would use to shine your shoes, or to dust something that you were going to sit on, or whatever it is. So it was not common for people to carry around items of cloth, because the environment required you to use these at any given time. The one at the front, because it was usually considered the cleanest, would be the one that would be visible. Okay. And it was encouraged that it had a lot of patterns, because if it was plain and then you were using it to sort of clean things around, you would then see the dirt. So the flower accents and the little patterns were there to mask any dirt that you would then use to clean up. So it's actually quite functional, this pocket square, although now it's leaning more towards aesthetics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we're said to be among the closest in Africa in terms of mannerisms to the British. Do you think we understand their fashion that well? The Kenyan gentleman and the English gentleman, are we closer in terms of mannerisms?
Yes, we are. I think we are, and it's something that has grown for a while now. You can see the difference in terms of how people behave. People are more mature, especially men, in terms of how they behave in public and how to represent themselves and how to talk to them. As you can see, if you can see Monesi talk, you can see how well-mannered he is. So
he sounds almost British.
Yeah, he sounds almost British, you see. So, and then how he dresses. And people are starting to appreciate, this is what I've seen in my profession, people are starting to appreciate more bespoke and made-to-measure tailoring compared to buying suits from a shop. So Kenyan men understand what a bespoke suit is, what it entails, how you look and how people perceive you, how important that is in terms of your profession and your personal life. So I think people are starting to adopt and create a culture where we care about how we look, how our mannerisms are, ethics and everything else. And that's why you have someone like Monesi who can come to you and tell you, okay, this is how things are supposed to be, this is how you should behave in public. And people are engaging more in that, and he can tell you that every day. That's his bread and butter. Yeah. It's how to show people how to behave, and people are taking it seriously. Corporates and everywhere, people are taking it seriously, how you should behave, how you should talk to people, how you should look in public, everything else. So I think, yes. Yeah.
And also, we are at a time in our nation where we appear to be 60 years after independence. It's like there are attempts to try and distinguish us from the British, to extricate some of those relics of colonial masters. And for example, the perfect example, the president, by going for kaunda suits. And it's very influential because you see a lot of ministers, the people he goes around with, adopting that same thing. Do you get a lot of this in the people you work with, that they now are seeking a different way apart from, away from how the British do it as fashion is concerned?
I think we're in a very exciting time in terms of the global developments. I think we must always remember that our sense of colonialism and where we are, it's a very short period of time. We've only been colonized, we've only been independent for about 60 years, and even before that, the level of colonization was probably only about 50 years leading up to 1963. So it's less than it's just shy of 100 years of influence that we've had to now deal with this, and we're in an age now where the world is so much smaller that our exposure to different styles of fashion around the world globally is becoming more and more prevalent. So people now have a sense of being able to pick and choose which culture to emulate, which style to emulate, or even create their own. One example that has rebelled significantly against British colonial rule is India. And if you look at how Prime Minister Modi dresses, he is very, very deliberate. I mean, there will be times where you'll find him, the off chance you'll find him in a suit, but in the main, he will always be in his traditional Indian regalia for the clan and the tribe that he hails from. We are, of course, because of being in a global world, the standard globally, whether you're in Britain, whether you're in America, whether you're in Russia, whether you're in Italy, whether you're in Australia, whether you're in India, whether you're in Africa, is a suit. From a commercial perspective, that is the global sense of I won't say dress code, but fashion that has been adopted if you want to do business. You go to places like the UAE now. If you are seen in a suit, like a serious two-piece or three-piece suit, most people now tend to think that maybe you're there to con them or something like that. So you're encouraged to break the suit. So you don't have the same colored suit all through. You maybe have a jacket, maybe lose the tie or something like that. So culture and fashion is starting to change significantly in the age of more connectivity. We have more internet now. Anybody right now, if they want to develop their own sense of style, you can go online and basically pick whatever it is that you want and make that your brand and make that something that you want to be recognized and seen for. But the issue of breaking away from the British rule, I think that will take some time because it's been ingrained in us. I think from primary school, children have been encouraged to wear a tie, although there were, some places you go in shorts, and then when you get to high school, you now wear pants. So even the dress code in the schools that we attend, if that changes, then we will see a significant shift in how we start to dress. And I think if depending on we sometimes think that education is just what we learn in terms of the academic and the mental, but also a lot of it has to do with what has been ingrained in terms of how we dress and how we speak. So if we see that shift happening at a young age in the schools, where children are now are being encouraged to dress differently outside of our typical colonial tie and collared shirt attire, then I think we will start to see this change happen. You see it in Nigeria, for example, yes, and in Western Africa, where yes, they will wear a suit because they know that once in a while, but they're very, very clear that our culture and our sense of identity comes from who we are, and so even children growing up are encouraged to wear a particular to dress in a particular way. There are certain communities here who still maintain their sense of individual identity. Certain cultures, the Arab and the Somali cultures, still maintain that as much as possible, and will lean towards their own style of dressing. The Indian community as well. So we as Kenyans who are coming into our own in terms of identity, and this has been the argument, and this is something that I've really been having discussions with so many people, both in corporate and in public sector. Do we as Kenyans have a sense of identity, or are we proud to adopt the typical British style and say, you know what, this is who we are. We were colonized. We appreciate it, we love it, it works for us. We will be the highest, that we will embody this to the highest level. Or do we want to be like the Congolese who take it now to a different level, and they're sapeurs and they want to express the French catwalk, very, very flashy and flamboyant style. I think we're way away from adopting an individual identity as Kenyans. And maybe this is what President Ruto is trying to do. Maybe he's trying to encourage, as the head of state, as the leader, to say, look, guys, we can express ourselves. Let's not be tied down to a particular way, but let's now start to think individually and independently, and I applaud it.
Yes, and he's very influential. On this, you've seen the debate about the Kenyan dress, and there are attempts to revive that discussion, and I think they've even been given a timeline. By next year, probably Utamaduni Day, 10th of October, we should be having some form of a Kenyan dress. If at all that was to happen, do you think that we are at that age where we can actually move away from the British style?
Yes, we are, because we have this sense of eliteness where we have a lot of people who are learned and sharp and be able to critically think and come up with something that can be identified as a Kenyan, as our own personal style, or as our own personal garment. Like Monesi said, 60 years is too short a time to be able to live that, because you can see from the British, a younger person, a younger man, a boy, supposed to wear shorts until he becomes a man. And in our school system, when you're in primary school, especially in public school, you wear shorts until you get to high school. Mm-hmm. So that is usually the style, and when you grow up, you know, okay, shorts are for boys, trousers are for men. And it will take a lot of time. But I think where we are now, and if you put the right people in those places, the right people who have the ability and knowledge to think in that area, we can come up with something very, very beautiful, and something that can last and can be identified as our own. And because the Maasai was not invented by a Kenyan, it was not brought around by a Kenyan.
Yet that is the best or the most identifiable identity we have.
Yeah, I think that's the argument where we want something of our own. And it comes out because we have people who think that we should. And those people should be in that place. Because I think what we lack in our culture and in Kenya is allowing people to critically think and innovate and come up with stuff. Mm-hmm. But we usually, at the end of the day, like we are now, we adopt. Business ideas, mm-hmm. Culture, everything else in our life, we adopt from people. Whether it's British, whether it's Italian, it's French, it's Nigerian. Mm-hmm. Like you see when people say, I'm wearing traditional, they end up wearing that Nigerian cut.
Yes. Most
of the time. Weddings, and traditional weddings, formal events, people end up wearing that because I think we adopt a lot of people's culture and people's ideas instead of coming up with our own. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, on this issue of the national dress, there have been previous attempts that really didn't work out. We are in a very fluid society. We are quick to adopt, and as Ashok mentioned, we're quick to pick the West African for even ratios, as opposed to our own traditional way of dressing. Do you think this time it could work in the next 1 year, that we can have an identifiable garment that we can call, this is typically Kenyan?
I think it needs a collective effort. I think there are a couple of ways that we can do it. One way is obviously making it mainstream in our schools. I think if we encourage that and the memo is circulated that, you know, as far as school uniforms are concerned, we must ensure that this is there as part of the school uniform. Whatever it is, if it's a shirt or a blouse or whatever it is that we decide to adopt, if we mainstream it from a young age and we make that now this is who we are as Kenyans. You know, we remember with the previous president, he would wear the Kenyan bracelet with the Kenyan flags that people started to adopt, and that sort of became like our quasi-identity. So for me, the first thing is to mainstream it in schools. And then the second thing is anybody who is in a position of influence or power, whether it's politics, whether it's celebrity, whether it's media, whether it's wherever it is, to come together and create this goodwill that if you are going on a foreign trip, or you're going to be in front of a camera, or you are going to be anywhere in the public domain, then ensure that you have that attire on. Because if all our influencers, and majority of the influencers in this country are politicians, if all our politicians, all our civil and state actors, all our celebrities, all our sportsmen and women, if they then adopt that and that becomes the standard, then we start to see a sense of civic pride starting to be part of who we are. So I think those two things. I mean, there are obviously a few more strategies that we can think through, but I think those two, if we can get that right, then I don't think it will be a question of should we have a national identity. I think the populace will start to adopt this fairly quickly and understand that this is who we are. Whether you like it or not, it's who we are. Our people have bought into it. Our kids are now part of it. It's part of the unwritten, or maybe it might even be a written law for some time. But that's the only way I think we can.
And this is the image I was mentioning earlier. You see the way the deputy president is dressed. And for such an occasion, in the presence of the king, the presence of the president, even if the president appears to have dressed down to some level. What is your assessment of this, Ashok? Because even here, I'm sure there are people who are behind how he wears and what he wears.
I think for him, from what I've seen, for him, even behind him, Mr. Musalia Mudavadi there, only the president has people behind what he thinks and what he wants to present as a brand. And for the deputy president, they don't value much on how he should look and how he should look in public and how he should dress up and how he should be intentional how you dress up. I think that's where we are at this point, because I think no one put a lot of thought. And this is basically what every Kenyan man wears. The floral shirt, jeans, and those sneakers. That's basically any Kenyan man. You walk, even you go to a shop, that's the first thing the sales lady will present to you. Oh, I want something casual. Oh, this is what you should wear. This is what guys wear. The only thing is missing there is a windbreaker. And then you have that basically Kenyan man, how he should look like. I think there's less thought put in it. I think it's just what he has, and people who are supposed to advise him, if he has people are supposed to advise him, they're failing him in that. I think the lack of creating a brand and a person who should be, I think for him should be the next president if that's the intention and the goal. I think they should work from there. I think that's what he did when he was vice president. He was working towards president and what kind of president should be and how he should look as a president. Because you can see even the cuff trousers is something he wore way before he even became vice president. It's his sense of style, and you can see it going up to now where he is now. He can change a few things, but he has that identity on how he should be, and structured suits and flared cut and fitting suits. That's who he is. You cannot change that. And that's how he's grown to become a president and identifiable.
This was in Mombasa. Yes, a lot can be said about the weather and the heat, but the deputy president at some point must have known that he's going to interact with a global leader who is on an official state visit. It should be natural for any politician of his stature when it comes to issues of dressing, Manesi.
I'm flabbergasted by this. For me, there's no excuse. And as much as we can try and defend and talk about it. I mean, from a perspective of this is a head of state visit, this is something where you need to be putting in an element of effort, whether it's his handlers or lack thereof, the complete disregard of protocol, and not being clear on the occasion. Is something that this image represents. And like I said, dressing sends a message. Whenever you dress in a particular way, it will send a message. If someone says to you, there's going to be an all-white event, come in all white, and you come in your purple and your brown or whatever it is, showing complete disregard for the event, the message that you're sending to the host or the person who has invited you is that you don't consider this important, and it's defiance. It's rebellion. And for me, you can either have intent, you can either intentionally defy, or you can negligently defy, where you genuinely don't know. Maybe you didn't get the memo, or you were just not sure, or something happened where you were negligent in the way and I don't think in this instance we have a situation of intentional defiance. I think this is just negligence on the part of his handlers, and you know, there's a gap there in the protocol office of the deputy president which needs to be filled.
Oh yes. Interesting discussion here on matters royal fashion and how even our own leaders dressed as they met and interacted with a royal couple, that's King Charles III and Queen Camilla, as they come to the end of their official state visit to Kenya. We're taking a short break. When we come back, we'll now look more at the women and how they dressed, and that interesting item of fashion, the umbrella that Queen Camilla kept carrying along with her. You're still watching Morning Cafe. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV47 with me, Fred Indimuli. I'm still in studio with Ashok Sunny, CEO, Ashok Sunny Tailor Limited, and Monesi Musalia, corporate image consultant. And we continue looking at matters fashion, especially when it comes to the royal visit by King Charles III and his wife, Queen Camilla. And just before we even move to the women, there's a question that one of my colleagues wanted me to ask about the tie. And there's a way that the British tie their tie. And I can see yours has a dimple somewhere. The Americans do it differently. Which one have we really adopted? And does it have any meaning?
Yeah, so the British have that. That's a classic Windsor. The Windsor knot is your typical tie, which it's not very complicated. It's something that you do very quickly because you have to be constantly on the move, and that's the one that was adopted by the soldiers in many of the main military dressing. So that Windsor knot is something that has a slight dimple, but it's not very symmetrical. It can lean either side because it's not something that is considered very, very serious. It's just something to divide the body, something to add character to the body. And so, as you can see, that knot is not, it's not sitting front and center. And you know, we've, for us as Kenyans, like I said, we're now in an age where we try and adopt different styles and try and have a way of expressing ourselves. The purpose of a tie is to, remember I said edges and symmetry. The purpose of a tie is to create total symmetry between one side of the body and the other, and it's a focal point on the dressing of a man to show that distinction between what's happening on this side and what's happening on this other side. And the British have never been particularly pedantic about how the style of knot that they use. In fact, the less the knot, the less pronounced the knot, the better. In fact, this knot is considered thick. Most of the time, British style Windsor knots are very, very thin, very, very understated. When it comes now to Italian, and now mainland Europe style of wearing ties, because they are more in the tropics. They're more the weather then around the Mediterranean is a bit warmer. They want to adopt something that is less constricting. So the tie needs to be able to breathe to the extent that, like for example, Ashok has what you call a cravat or a piece that allows breathability. When you have a dimple in your tie, what you're trying to do is you're trying to draw attention to the knot, and for the Windsor knot, it will dimple because of just the level of force that you use to tie a Windsor knot.
Okay, interesting.
Before we go to the ladies, something I remembered I read about the king. We're looking at his picture here. His father was a very toned down guy, and like you said, there's something about anxiety and being shy. I think he adopted that from his father and most of his character. His father was very intentional about bespoke suits, and he wears bespoke suits. He goes to the tailors, he does the fitting, the cut, and everything else. He appreciates bespoke. And the issue about pocketing, if I'm not wrong, he got it from his father, if I'm not very wrong. He's slightly adopted the character and everything that from his father compared, and mannerism compared to everyone else. I think his sons are a bit more outgoing and not as shy as him. I think they're a bit more going like their mother compared to him. He adopted more of his father. The boys are a bit more like their mother. That's why they're a bit more outgoing and rebellious a bit.
I'd also want to hear your sentiments when it comes to the tie, because I can see yours is totally different. You're rarely in a tie.
No, what we usually, from making suits and everything else, for the 10 years I've been, most of the guys I come around don't know how to dress down formally. So you get people on Friday or Saturday still wearing a tie. You can see Musalia Mudavadi in Mombasa in a navy blue suit and a tie, because they don't know how to dress down and still look formal and proper when you're going to certain occasions or certain places. So a cravat, an ascot, a less lighter shirt, a slimmer collar is something you can wear. A dark green suit, a burgundy suit, are colors you can wear on a Friday, still look formal. Go to the office, go to dinner, go to brunch, meet people, and you still look proper and formal if that's the branded image you want to present. So the reason I usually go away from ties mostly is just to show my clients you can dress down but still look formal and proper. Because a cravat like this gives you, like Monesi said, more breathability and more comfort and less formality than a tie.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And I hope guys are learning something here when it comes to ties and proper way to dress. Let's now take a look at the female fashion. The Queen, it's interesting that all her dresses tended to be white from the first day she came up to the last day. I've not seen her, apart from when she attended the state banquet and she had a navy blue dress, but she is predominantly in white. Munesi, you say this communicates something.
Yes, absolutely. They were here on a mission of peace. I think they've been highly criticized, especially in back home, for having to apologize on every state visit that they make. This being their first African visit, usually your consort, the king's consort or the queen's consort is the spouse, and your consort is communicates everything that you would like to say, but you cannot say. So in her dressing in white, the element of I'm here for peace, I'm here for bringing people back together. I'm here as a sign of we want to mend bridges, and we want to kind of bring ourselves together. I think that's one of the things that from a message perspective it communicates. But I think also Camilla has always been leaning more towards white and light colors throughout her public life. And that's something that maybe also speaks to her brand and how she likes to remain on brand constantly in white tones, in elements like that. But for me, the message is very clear.
Okay.
This is peace. We're here to mend bridges.
And she looks very classy at her age, a 76-year-old. For the Kenyan version of her, dressing and looking classy is quite a task. How does she manage to do this?
I think she's one of the, she was very close compared to Princess Diana to the Queen Elizabeth. And Queen Elizabeth was very, very intentional in terms of how someone should look in public. She usually liked to wear bright colors. And for this trip, it has a certain significance and for her and a resemblance to Queen Elizabeth, because she was here the day she became queen, the day her father passed away and she was supposed to become queen. She was here in Kenya. And I think that's the first thing they did, to choose Kenya as a Commonwealth nation to visit because of that point, because for King Charles, that was, for the king, yes, that was where his mother became, and the last place she became queen.
Okay.
So I think even the brooch, because the brooch belonged to...
The brooch is that piece on her...
Yeah, it belonged to Queen Elizabeth.
Yes.
So I think that's how, and then because of her closest, Queen Elizabeth was very classy. She was a very classy woman. She knew how to handle herself.
Okay.
One thing also, if you notice the way she's dressed, remember I mentioned symmetry. If you look at her outfit compared to Mama Rachel's outfit, the very clear distinction in the collar and the way it divides the outfit into two equal parts, that's, it speaks high status, high commerce. And the minute you're able to have an outfit that can divide the body into two equal parts from a symmetrical perspective, that is considered extremely high status. And many of her outfits had that effect, where you would have a distinct division between this side and this side. So her outfits are very symmetrical. If you look at the line coming all the way down all the way down to that, it's to maintain that symmetry and that balance. And then as you see the collar there, the edge right there on at the top right next to her neck, edges and symmetry are the highest level of commercial and professional dressing, and she's embodied that quite well. And that's why, even at her age, with the cut and the fit of the way she's dressed, it still exudes a certain level of class.
Yes, and in our culture, we rarely want to critique too much, especially our First Lady. But what do you think of her dressing?
I think, like Monesi said, in terms of cut and also color, you can clearly distinct her from the Queen. But I think the way she likes to have a personal style and the way she likes to dress, that's her way of bringing out her character and who she is. But you can clearly see that this is the monarch. There is a certain protocol on how
she does stand out.
Yeah, she does stand out. And they have a certain protocol and class and training before she gets married to the king and becomes a queen. There's certain training she has to go through and to understand how to present herself, the protocols and the codes and everything else. But for a First Lady, she's just bringing out her character and being able to present how she wants to look like.
Plus, in Africa, we love a lot more color.
Yeah.
A lot more color and a lot less edges. So the more rounded the outfit, the better. So once you have a rounded element, the message that it's sending is a motherly, someone who is, and she's embodied that. She's taken that role very, very well as far as being the first lady. She wants to have this. I am the mother of the nation, and even in the way she dresses, it's the choice of not just patterns, but also the cut and the shape of her dresses. If you look at the dress, the way it has the rounded edges down at the bottom, the frill at the bottom of the dress, it's very motherly, very rounded and subdued. What that does is it creates a sense of comfort. She wants to come across as someone who you are comfortable with. You are comfortable being in her space. This is very official, very symmetrical, very edgy, very classy, very, I'm here for business. But she has this more softer, you can approach me, I'm a mother, and that is reflected in the way that she dresses.
And even the way, when you see her every time, she's smiling. She's always smiling. She's very warm.
Very warm.
And when you meet
That's her best accessory.
Yeah, she's very, like, you can be able to approach her and talk to her. That's actually working for her.
And a lot has been said about accessories, and one of the most notable accessories that the Queen had was the umbrella. And yes, I've seen her somewhere with an umbrella. Do we have that photo
in Mombasa?
Of yes, even at State House or at Uhuru Gardens, she was seen walking with her umbrella. And you see, if at all it was the first lady with an umbrella, one of the handlers will definitely come and tell her, let me help you with this. But for the British, it is an accessory that accompanies the dress, Monesi.
Habit is a consequence of our environment. And London, Britain, the UK, very, very rainy throughout. The weather there is significantly damp, and so the umbrella is not just a functional item. With accessories, you have what you call functional and aesthetic accessories. So if we talk about functional accessories, things like spectacles, belt, shoes, watch, these are functional accessories. For the British, the umbrella is a functional accessory. In almost every aspect of their lives, they need to be able to take care of themselves from the elements. And people don't realize, but the summers get very, very hot as well. And because of their fair skin, they're prone to skin cancer and being exposed to things that are very, very unpleasant where the sun is concerned. So that umbrella serves two purposes. Depending on the thickness and the weight of the umbrella, you will have an umbrella that is specific for the sun, which I think is the one that she was carrying in Mombasa. And then you have the other one, which is a functional accessory. It's small, but just in case it's overcast. I know Nairobi lately has been raining, and for them, it's a very normal accessory to carry wherever you go. If you land in any part of Britain today, the first thing that you will comment on is the weather. The weather is always damp and overcast, and so carrying an umbrella is a necessary accessory. But of course, this particular one, as you can see, it has it's got quite a good aesthetic to it. It's got the wooden finish and the lace covering right at the top there, because it's not a thick material. This is not going to prevent rain. This is purely for shade and for the sun, but it's also got the crown on top of it, which speaks to the royalty.
Yes, and I saw that even as she's walking, even when she's not using the umbrella to cover herself, that she keeps walking with it, so that she does not give it to her aides. So and it's more or less the same color as her dress. And the Queen used to have an umbrella as well for most places where she goes. And in our Kenyan environment, umbrellas are things we hide in the bags or in the boot of your car. Only it comes out when it starts raining. Do you see us heading that way? Because we rarely see an umbrella as a fashion accessory.
Yeah. I don't think we are in that place where we are going to carry an umbrella, because if we do it, then we are going back to what you're trying to move away from, which is mimicking and doing everything someone else does and adopting what other people are doing. If it's not in our nature, it's not in our nature. We don't have to carry umbrellas, because you see now when it starts to rain, that's when you look for someone who's selling an umbrella. You usually don't have an umbrella on you or in your car. Usually, because that's our weather. Our skin like Monesi said, allows us to be in a hot, humid weather. We don't have that problem, especially in Nairobi. If you go to Mombasa, well and good, it's fine. But if you're here, you're used to that environment. Our skin is used to that kind of environment. Our body is used to that kind of environment. So why should we carry umbrellas and walking them as a fashion accessory? And we are not in that space or in that place. Even if you go to Britain, not everyone carries an umbrella as a fashion accessory. Most of the time you have the royal family because it's a nature, it's something they're trained in, and that's something they're used to doing. And at least for her, she's trying to protect her skin from the direct hot climate that is here in Kenya. So I don't think we're in that place where we're going to adapt that as a fashion style or something that in our culture or in our behavior day to day to carry an umbrella.
Yeah, those events I've seen fashion high tea where they wear sundresses and probably and very big hats. That is the equivalent of this umbrella.
Sure, and I'm a big fan of hats. I think you know we must do our part to accessorize as much as possible. If you know an accessory adds character to your outfit, it distinguishes you in a little bit and elevates the entire outfit. And wherever you can have an accessory, and for women, their main accessory is jewelry. So your necklaces, your brooches, your earrings, your rings, bracelets, and so on. And of course, your bags. Bags are huge accessories for women. And anything that is going on top of your head. Of course, nowadays, you know, women will put on things that are not just hats, but you know, wigs and weaves and things like that to accentuate who they are. And wigs and weaves have become a very, very important mainstay in terms of the accessories that women have. So shoes, bag, head cover, these are accessories that you know just completely add to the character of a woman's outfit. We have, for men, our outfits are very basic. Top, bottom, cover. That is the essence of our outfit. But for women, they can have a single item and then have everything else accessories. For example, this is a single item. This is a one piece, which has a clear distinction in symmetry, but then it's finished with all of the accessories: the brooch, the earrings, the neck piece, the bag, the shoes. All of these are adding to the character of the outfit. But when you look at the men, the only accessories that we have other than the functional accessory, which is the watch, are the maybe your belt and your shoes, and then that's it. Okay. So for women, accessories are very, very important. If she had a hat on, which she would typically have, it would just complete the look. Okay. Yeah.
As we come to the end of this conversation, how do you think we performed well in as far as our fashion is? As hosts to the King and Queen, did we perform? What's your rating of our performance?
For the President and the First Lady, I think they did exceptionally well in terms of position and who they are and what they represent. I think they did the best they could. And compared to if it were other administrations, I think we would have seen something more consistent and very, very formal. If you a former president, you could see it's very formal. Apart from formal, you could do the African shirts. But I think for this administration, they are very, very intentional on how they're supposed to look, what kind of brand they're supposed to bring out, and who they should be remembered as. And I think they did exceptionally well in trying to be from the norm, very different, slightly different. And as much as they did not match the royal family in terms of protocol and everything else and strictness, but they were at par with them in terms of how they should look like and how different things should be.
Yes, interesting. And there's an issue about personal space. And when President Barack Obama came and even attended a dinner at State House, and there was a point where he was on the stage and people were holding him, hugging him, and I remember, is it BNM of Sauti Sol who held him over the shoulder? He had his arm around the president. We've not seen that with the king. There seems to be a lot of respect when it comes to personal space for the king and the queen. That is something good from our end.
Well, it's also,
we seem to understand that the king, you don't get too close to him.
I think it's also a question of the protocol team. You know, Barack Obama's protocol team had a very relaxed air about them. They would allow much more freedom, and I think this came from instruction from him. I think he really wanted to get in with the people. remember, Barack Obama was a mobilizer. He came from Chicago, and his job before he became a lawyer was he was a mobilizer. He was always in with the people, getting people to come together, and he would always go and hug people. He was very, very social, even from when he was young, from his university days. And so I think that's something that he informed his protocol team to allow, that when he's in a safe space, once security has confirmed that the people here are safe, he would then allow for protocol to be broken and be very free with the people. I think, obviously with the king and his team, yes, they had a protocol team, but there were also some other events that where the president and the first lady were not there, where he was very relaxed. I think there was a function that was held by the British Council, where he was in and around, where he was eating street food and he was mingling and talking with people. In that instance, he was quite relaxed and very, very free and open with people. But of course, where you have both him and President Ruto, you're dealing with two protocol teams. And the protocol teams have to coordinate and synchronize and say to each other, okay, look, how much space and freedom and autonomy do we want to give our respective heads, so that, and taking instruction from them, but also making sure that, the safety and security is taken into account.
Yes, I think this is one of the few moments where people got extra close to the Queen and even held her hands. We've not seen a lot of that, apart from the normal shaking of hands. Personal space has been respected.
For someone like Obama also, you have to remember, he's Kenyan. He's Kenyan. He has that Kenyan heritage. And he was very comfortable and happy to be home. I think that's why he was that free with people, because he wanted to soak in as much as he can from people at home, feel, because he's been away for a long time. He's not been raised here. He wanted to feel and soak in that Kenyan feel and that friendliness and that homely feel, so that it's like you come home after a long time, you want to hug your brother, you want to be around everyone, you want even to hug everyone else, you want to hug the watchman and everyone else, because you've not been there for a long time. You want to soak in as much as you can that energy that is home. Yeah.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ashok Sunny, CEO Ashok Sunny Tailored Limited, also the president's personal tailor, we have to mention that, and Mwenesi Musalia, corporate image consultant, talking about matters royal fashion. How have we conducted ourselves in as far as fashion and our behavior as we hosted King Charles III and Queen Camilla during their 4-day state visit, which comes to an end today. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your very well-considered opinions on this matter of fashion. Allow me to go through this editorial comment as we come to the end of this session. Now, the recent reduction in government capitation for learners in secondary schools and the increasing cost of university education are issues that deserve our immediate attention and concern. These financial challenges threaten to erode the very foundation upon which the hopes and aspirations of countless families rest. Free secondary education was a crucial milestone for Kenyan society. It not only expanded access to quality education, but also addressed social and economic disparities, fostering greater inclusivity and opportunities for the nation's youth. When parents are unable to take their children to secondary school due to poverty, it points to a grim future for this country. The soaring cost of university education is also a growing concern. Many students are now finding it increasingly difficult to sustain themselves through their college years. The cost of living, compounded by the financial strain of tuition and other associated expenses, is pushing students to the brink. Yet, education is not just a personal investment, but a societal one. It is an investment in our collective future, as educated individuals are better equipped to drive economic progress and foster innovation, as well as contribute to the overall well-being of society. Families across the nation look to education as a beacon of hope, a means to break free from the cycle of poverty, and a path to a brighter future. The belief is that with education, individuals can transform their own lives and by extension, improve the fortunes of their families and communities. Denying them this opportunity due to funding and cost-related issues is not just a disservice, it is inhuman. It is incumbent upon the government